room right now. There.
I actually encourage eating while I'm talking because then you don't fall asleep.
There you go. I like that. Drink lots of coffee too. There is. I hear there's caffeine in it. Or Coca-Cola. There's coffee right in the middle of the room too. If you don't want to walk all the way over there, there's a couple of pots on the cart right here. If they aren't already empty. Let's see. A couple more things. One is after the program, instead of everybody rushing off, if anybody that's healthy enough wants to stay and help clean up all the tables and all the dishes, feel free to stay. We can use the help. I don't really want to be here till 8 o'clock tonight. Let me tell you that some of our regular food preparers weren't here today. Tom Patterson's up north, and Donna Baumgartner's down in Florida, seeing her dad. But we had the help of our grill man, Mike Schlitt. He's got his hand up over there. We had some other kitchen club members, Sue Page, Rollin Crane. Rollin, okay.
His modesty is overwhelming.
Both Jansons are here, Doug and Noreen, and if I miss anybody, I appreciate Pam. Pam. What's her? How you always pronounce her last name? Yankee. Yeah, I'm always trying to get her mixed up with all the other Pams in church. Yankee. There's a Pam we don't see very often. Over here. That might be it. If I didn't acknowledge you. Oh, by the way, yes. When we got here, it was all set up. That's because usually the Pattersons set it up the day before. Well, they're up north, so what I had is my wife and my son down from Nina. It was visiting, so I said, hey, why don't you guys help us out? So my son Steve and my 3 granddaughters, twin 13-year-olds and a 8-year-old, 7-year-old. She might be 7. They were going to come eat breakfast too, but to get a 7-year-old and 2 13-year-olds up for breakfast, they're not very easy. The last thing I want to say is, before introducing our speaker, is that, for future months, we have these breakfasts every 4th Saturday of the month. So there's going to be one in December 23rd. We're skipping November because it's 2 days after Thanksgiving. Yeah, 2 or 3 Saturdays. Yeah. December 23rd, we are going to have one, even though it's 2 days before Christmas. But let's see if people are hungry. I don't want to skip too many months. January 27th, February 24th, March 23rd, day before Jan's birthday. We can have a birthday party. April 27th and May 25th. We usually end in May and then have to take the summer off. I always thought during the summer we should do a pancake breakfast out in the parking lot. Let's maybe see if we can do that this year. Mary Domicon. Hey, everybody up for singing happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mary. Happy birthday to you.
We also had a 40th birthday this week.
40th? Who's 40? Oh. I was going to say 40, or did you say 4?
40.
40, okay. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mary. Happy birthday to you. Is there anybody else? If there's anybody else, let's sing all together. Everybody's birthday. And last month, maybe. Is it your birthday too?
Hey, come on, folks, you're eating into my time.
Sally, happy birthday. Thank you. Future speakers. It's been hard in the past to find speakers. This year I'm getting pretty lucky. So I've contacted people we got a couple of people who have been on trips here that might do, like Kevin Schumacher. I think he did a nice Iceland presentation last year. I think he went somewhere since then. I got a village planner going to talk about that the road in front of church here for the next 2 years is going to be under construction. And so we're going to see what's going on in the village. I've got United Methodist Children's Services, which is now called Rooted and Rising. People have always wondered what these people on Monday nights are doing out behind the church with their dogs. I'm going to have one of them speak to us. It's a Frisbee dog club. They claim that they're like, it's a worldwide organization that they claim they're like the second or third best dog club in this worldwide organization. Pretty good, huh? Hunger Task Force, which a couple of weeks ago I helped for 3 hours pick sweet corn. They have a big farm on the south side in Franklin. And other groups, Native American group I'm talking to, financial planning, and all kinds of things. Okay, without further ado. What? Oh, you ready? Oh. Without further ado, Dr. Matt Hadley. Right?
Sure, Reverend Doctor. You can just call me Matt.
Doctor, yours and my pastor, Reverend Dr. Matt Hadley.
All right. So, we're supposed to be done in 15 minutes, and I can't do anything in 15 minutes, so we're going to go just a little bit longer. But I'm going to ask that if you have questions as we're going along, that you hold those questions so that at the end we can pass a microphone around, and I'll field any questions at the end. But because we are recording this, and there's going to be so many people who are watching this online, that I want it to run in a good fashion. Secondly, I'm hoping that at least 2 people will reach out to me that would be willing to do some transcribing. One person to transcribe the meet and greet results, and another person to transcribe what we say about the vision. I'll give you my notes if you're willing to do that, but the Holy Spirit's going to put a lot of things in my mouth that I think aren't in my notes, so I want to get a transcription of what we have going on here. So a few preliminary observations. When I began this process, I wanted to get to know folks, and I wanted to give people an opportunity to know me. There was no question of me that was off limits. I have made the decision long ago in my life just to be as transparent as I can be, to not have to wear a mask. And my very second sermon here, I told you about some things that maybe you haven't heard pastors share about their own life. I mean, I want to be an open book for you. Second thing, before we begin, you can tell when I asked some of these questions in the meet and greets, i.e., when we were only having one worship in the summer, and some people hate the sanctuary service, and some people hate the service that's held here in Celebration Hall. And so a lot of these things, don't make me go to celebration service if I want to worship in the building. Well, those things were timely. Also, the rummage sale. When I was doing a lot of these, the rummage sale was either just about to happen or had just happened. And so a lot of people weighed in on the rummage sale. There was also some groupthink that went on. The larger the group, sometimes one person would say something, i.e., I feel like clapping in church is irreverent. And then a bunch of people said, yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. And so that was kind of a group think. And we can do some more education around that. People talking about they have to have a sanctuary service each week. It was beautiful for me to hear people be passionate about worshiping in a sacred space, even though we know that the world is filled with altars. The world is our sanctuary. And there was some real negative attitudes and statements that were voiced, and that is understandable. And a lot of that negativity came early on, and I just want to say it's okay. That was an honest statement, and a lot of folks were saying this church just wasn't like it was just a few years before. And so I understand that, and I hope that we can all agree that the pendulum is starting to swing back the other way. When I look at just how many people are in this room this morning, do you realize that just this gathering right here has more people in it than more than half of our churches in the Methodist Conference are going to have tomorrow? I mean, that's great. So this is wonderful. So I'm going to begin with the meet and greets and what I found. And so if we can change the slide, Gary. This was an exercise. You are going to be relocated for 5 years. When you come back to this church, what do you hope is exactly the same? And I said, don't say people. Don't say Bill Fulman. You can say, but I could say music. And so people did say music. What do you hope is gone? And that's always hard. But churches that never move forward don't move forward because they have this anchor of something they've been hanging on to far too long. One person said, we're not good at killing things here. We kind of run them in perpetuity just because. And that's poison for a community of faith. It is poison. What do you hope is new? And people had a lot of things to say about that. And then finally, what is one sermon you would like to hear an answer to? So I had 130 conversations, which exceeded my goal because I just wanted to have as many conversations as our average worship attendance was last year. And average attendance last year was not great. And so I was able to exceed that number. Of those 130 conversations, I had 575 answers. And so if we can go to the next slide here with the numbers, you can see how people weighed in. Of the 575 answers, 72 were, I don't know. But I gave permission. I don't know is a valid answer. Don't make something up. And so most of those I don't knows were around the gone category. What do we want gone? And I found as I was doing this that the larger the meet and greet was, the fewer responses I had about what do you want gone. And I think it's because people were afraid to say they wanted something gone that somebody sitting across the table from them really loved. I got all kinds of very, very honest feedback when I was doing these one-on-one or when I was doing them in much smaller groups. And so this is an exercise I'm going to do every 5 years, and I'm going to do it differently in 5 years from now. Getting to know you won't be quite as important, and so we can do things in a different way. So 156 answers to what is the same, 81 answers to what is gone, 136 for what is new, and 130 thoughts about what should be preached. 82 of those, there were 82 topics, 82 different topics. And of those, 24 were how to or how do I. And so we're going to come back to that. More than 26 sermons in 2024 are going to be because you gave me this feedback. But let me give you some of my favorite answers. These are one-off answers, right? So what do you hope is the same? And one person stunned everyone else in the group when she said, nothing. I want nothing to be the same. I want everything to be different in 5 years. How many of you were here 5 years ago? All right. Is it different now than 5 years ago? Everything is going to change. So everything will be new in one way or another. My favorite answer for what is gone seems like it's bashing a boomer generation. But I want you to know this was offered up by a boomer. She said, boomers, stop wishing for the good old days of doing things that are past. And the younger generations, stop allowing the boomers to run the show. Memories are fine, but what's gone is gone. We need new ideas from new leaders to keep us fresh. What do you hope is new? My favorite answer was, how about a plan? Well, why is that new? How about a plan? But then she continued on, find out what the church is going to be in 30 years and start doing it now. Don't be reactionary, be proactive. And I get that. I get that because how many people here want your children and grandchildren, your nieces and nephews, to identify with a local church, to go to church, to find meaning at church? That should have been unanimous. And yet, are there a lot of them here? How many of you have grown children who have wandered away? You don't need to show me your hands there, but because we know what the statistics are. So yes, we need to do some things different. What was done 30 years ago doesn't work today, and what's going to be effective in 30 years from now, we're not doing today. So we need to kind of find that. My favorite answer, I have actually two favorite answers for what do you want to hear a sermon on. And one person said, how about a sermon in a bag or fortune cookie sermons? So when I used to have large amounts of children at children's service, in the summer, one time I said, bring an item in a bag. And I would open up a bag, and I would preach on whatever was inside. Another way to do that is to everyone open up a fortune cookie right? And then I give a message that I can find on out of that fortune, try and work it out. But my all-time favorite answer was about, what kind of a sermon do you want to hear? And this man said, just make them shorter. I took that he felt empowered in order to be completely himself. More than a third of all the responses had to do with worship. 170 responses around worship. 95 of those said we want, whether it's this service or the service in the sanctuary, they want it just the same. But 75 other answers said, I want certain parts of worship gone, or I want something brand new in worship. And so what we really found is that people want worship options for both traditional and celebration hall worship, whatever it's going to look like. People have great disdain for only one worship option in the summer. People are craving for a later sanctuary service. And people are also craving for midweek opportunities or off-site opportunities at different times than a traditional worship kind of time. So let's take a look at the top answers for same, gone, new, and sermons. So for same, here's what you said. Music. Secondly, welcoming relationships and a sense of community. Turns out, for the most part, you guys like each other a lot and like being here. And I'll tell you what's dangerous about that is sometimes when we just so love our own people, we create physical and emotional walls with anyone else who is coming in. People want it to be intergenerational still, and they want relevant preaching. And so let's do that, right? Can we all agree those are good things to keep the same? What do we want gone? Overwhelmingly, the number one answer in what I want gone is the current worship schedule. And I knew this was going to be sticky even before I came. I mean, Roland and some others just said to me, we had this, it was quite a deal, quite an ordeal. And then, the staff said, and no one on staff wanted what we're doing now. No one on staff? Your pastors, your musicians, the people that work, no one on staff wanted this worship schedule. That should be telling. Another thing people want gone are hypercritical attitudes towards pastors. That needs to stop right now. Staff, that needs to stop too. I want to protect my staff. We're in a covenant relationship together. If you haven't read the staff covenant, it is laminated and it is pinned up right outside my office, and programming. And the last thing people want gone are cliques. What do people want new? People want children in the sanctuary. The one day we had the two dapperly dressed young guys walk up and be acolytes. Have you ever been to a worship service where acolytes got applause? People want to see the children. People want more young children. People want new mission opportunities beyond the walls. People who aren't already a part of a choir or a ministry team are craving small group opportunities, life groups, people to do life with together at common stages of life. People want more special one-off offerings to bring people in. People, I think everyone tried to butter up Bill because they would illustrate, boy, those dinner shows were fun. Those dinner shows were fun. But all kinds of things. Yes, it's a lot of work. And then the final thing that was overwhelmingly in the majority was opportunities to meet new people. We've seen a lot of new people come in, and how do we get to know them without chasing them away? Now, sermons. What I have done is I have already established a preliminary entire preaching schedule for the year 2024. And I promised you that January sermon series, getting into Lent, is going to be a sermon series called You Asked For It. What do you want to hear? What have you asked for? And so the first sermon in the new year, one that we're going to advertise, is this age-old question, why do bad things happen to good people? The second one you asked for was xenophobia and racism. What do we do? Our culture is getting more and more fractured. You've asked for Christianity's family tree. How are we the same or different than other Christian expressions? And that sermon is going to be preached on Ecumenical Sunday. And if you don't know what ecumenical means, ask somebody at your table. What does it and does it not mean to be a tolerant Christian? Getting into February, extending authentic forgiveness and life's transitions and aging. A reminder that we're all on a path to being born into eternity. And just 3 days after that sermon, it's Ash Wednesday, where we come together and remember our own mortality. I just wish it wasn't on Valentine's Day this year, but that's when Ash Wednesday falls. So a Lenten sermon series, again, this comes from things you asked for. It's going to be called Human Emotions. There's going to be a sermon on sadness, happiness and joy, anger, fear, shame, disgust. Then we move forward, and here comes the summer series that you asked for, how to share my faith, how to handle grief, how to discern the voice of God from other voices that are swirling around, how to feel safe in a dangerous world, how to overcome hatred, how to know God is real, how to let go, how to handle tragedy, how to achieve peace, how to love our neighbors as ourselves, how to celebrate, how to find blessings in difficult situations, how to make sense of the Bible, and finally, how to raise a Christian child. And then we are moving on. People want to talk about politics. And so on All Saints' Day, which is 2 days before the presidential election, and if you didn't know there was a presidential election coming up, just turn on your TV for the next several months and it's going to be everywhere. But that sermon's going to be, do the departed care if Jesus is Democrat or Republican? And so that's our preaching schedule that you asked for, all of it. And so, can we agree that we want our church to continue to be vibrant and make real difference both inside and beyond the walls? Can we agree on that? If we all agree on that, then you have all the rationale needed for a new vision, a vision to be cast. And so we here at Emmanuel Church, we say that our mission is to imitate Christ together, but we have a mission statement for the United Methodist Church. And so Gary, if we can put that up there, and there's that window there that makes it hard to see. Magic. Can you all say this with me together? The mission of the United Methodist Church is to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. Sounds great. How are we doing? We know we're called to do this because of the next slide, what Jesus said just before leaving us in Matthew. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them into the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you. And remember, I am with you always to the ends of the age. Go. Make disciples. That's our call. That's our charge. And the only way we can do that is if we have a vision of how to do it. Proverbs says, and I think there's a slide for this too, where there is no vision, the people perish. Habakkuk, then the Lord answered me and said, write a vision, make it plain upon a tablet so that a runner can read it. And a runner, so when somebody's running by, it's big enough print, it's succinct enough, it's clear enough that everyone can see that vision. And no vision's gonna make it when it comes to church unless God comes first. Jesus said in Matthew in the Sermon on the Mount, but strive first for the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. If you put first things first, growth will happen. We know this in all of the world. Healthy organisms grow. Healthy organizations grow. But we have to be healthy in matters of faith. And so I have a macro vision. So if you were hoping to have a pinpoint, detailed vision cast, that's not what a macro vision is. And so I have a definition of macro vision. Macro, large scale, long or great in size or duration. Vision, the faculty or state of being able to see, the ability to think about or plan the future with imagination or wisdom. So a macro vision is different than just dreaming about something, right? Just wishing and hoping are different. It needs to be followed with a detailed plan to faithfully accomplish its goals. And no living, breathing vision is cast in stone or is static. No, vision is always fluid. And you might disagree with me on that. We could have a wonderful conversation. But vision is fluid, constantly evolving based on the changes around us and human assets. Now, some people hate that term, human asset, but you know what I mean, unless we step up, unless we all get things together. So does a new vision mean change? Sure. Oh, people don't like that. People don't like change, but change is inevitable. Never has the world changed faster than the world is changing right now, and change is uncomfortable. Nobody likes change unless they are the ones who initiated it. And so we know that the good old days are gone. The world is different now, and so we need to find new ways. Tomorrow's sermon, does anyone know what tomorrow's sermon is about already? Dance, right? It's just a 2-week sermon series, song and dance. And I have a quote that I couldn't quite fit into my sermon for tomorrow by Don Miguel Ruiz. Maybe his most famous writing is The Four Agreements. This is what he said: life is like dancing. If we have a big floor, many people will dance. Some will get angry when the rhythm changes, but life is changing all the time. And so our dance, as what it means to be a local church right here where we're planted, is changing all the time. Now, I really believe that the conference is going to leave me alone now. This is my last stop. And if they want to move me again, which I won't ask for, I would just retire. I'm fully vested. I would just do that. So you're not going to get rid of me real fast. And I've already said, if you want a better pastor, don't call the cabinet, just pray for me. Pray for me. But I'm not ready to retire. I want to be here. I want to see 5-year goals realized. I want to see 10-year goals realized. I want to see 15-year goals that are being planned and we can move forward into. And if we do that, when my time here is done, and not everyone that's in this room will be here when my time is done. Hopefully no one passes away, but you might be relocated. You might move away, but hopefully we'll be in a much better place for positive growth moving forward. And so as I kind of get into this macro vision, some of you are going to say, sounds great, Pastor, but how are we going to pay for that? Has anyone ever asked that question here? We are a local church, right? How are we going to pay for that? Well, that kind of mindset is scarcity mindset. And God doesn't deal in scarcity. You may think you're being frugal, realistic, financially conservative, and responsible, all of which are wonderful things, unless it is motivated by a scarcity mentality instead of an abundance mentality. And dying churches are stuck in scarcity thought. And so I don't want to be a part of a church. I don't want to lead a church that only focuses on how great things were in the past, who look backwards to talk about the movement of God. I want to see what God is doing now, because God is constant, God is alive, and God is at work. God is at work for the kingdom. God's math is never divisible, and so we need to multiply. Multiply our teams, multiply our offerings, multiply everything so that we might move forward, always being ready to change. And so here we go. Macro vision. There are some non-negotiable essentials. Non-negotiable essentials about this macro vision. And it all boils down to reach, to care, to equip, and to send. And that's up there on the screen. To reach the unchurched. But also, friends, I believe there's as many de-churched folks in our communities as unchurched. Maybe even more. And never in our history here in America have we been as unchurched as now, which tells me we need church now more than ever. And so if that's going to happen, if we're going to reach out, we must not be afraid to fail. If you're constantly trying new things, always looking forward, if you're not constantly trying new things, if you're not always looking forward, then you're falling behind. Not having a plan is a plan to... Oh, I thought I came up with that on my own. No. But what I would say is we should fear not trying more than fearing failure. Let me say that again. We should fear not trying more than fearing failure. And some of the best things that have happened in my ministry have come from epic failures. At Stillwaters, we were just exploding. We were growing so much, and we needed to put on an education wing. It was a wonderful, wonderful time there, but we were trying to get our worship schedules together. And so we went for a year. We made refrigerator magnets, and it just said, it had our church logo, and it said 10, 20, 40. And what that was that was our worship schedule, 8, 10, 9, 20, 10, 40, right? And so, because we only had this one little traditional service and we had this one contemporary service, and the contemporary service, people were standing in the narthex, there was no room. So we went to some different things, and it was a disaster. I like to talk, so I had no time, even though we didn't have to change venues, there was no time. So I was shaking hands as people were walking out, as I was shaking hands, people walking in. It was a disaster. But what happened was, because we had an 8:30 and 10, what happened was that 10 o'clock service, it was so big, people had to decide where they were going to go. And what it turned into when we finally made the change was 2 equally stocked services, which led to even more explosive growth. Don't be afraid to fail. The only time failure is really failure is if we don't learn a lesson from it. So we need to always learn. And so if we're really going to be a reach, we need to be a go-to church. Gone are the days where we can wait for people just to walk through our door. Gone are the days where some people who are highly spiritual and maybe even pray to Jesus Christ have felt comfortable being in a church building at all. We need to find new places to go. Yes, we're going to always maintain sacred worship in sacred space here in this building, but we need to find new things. We need to be a go-to church to reach the unchurched, the de-churched in our community, which means we have to involve ourselves in radical hospitality without smothering. There's a difference there, right? We need to educate around how to be invitational. I am hyper-invitational. Man, I always carry these cards around, and I'm just, hey, I'm the pastor here, and come and visit me. I appear normal. Come check us out. Passionate worship, if we're going to reach, and I already talked about that may mean Saturday, midweek. It may mean digital worship services that are completely different than anything that we do with an in-person gathering. And another part about that reach is we have this wonderful resource. How are the ways in which we can turn our physical plant into something that is viewed as a community center, something that really serves the falls and the small communities around us? We need to reach. Second thing is to care. And people, we provide care through community. And we know that, quote, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so we provide care through small groups. We're going to keep coming back to the small groups ministry. We provide care by offering and being a place where people who are wounded and who are broken can find healing and wholeness. We need to be a safe place for support groups. We need to have fellowship groups that maintain connection. And we know that people will chase community because God created us to belong. And so what that may mean is growing larger by growing smaller. It may mean offering multiple worship services for a sense of community. And about 5 years ago, people said the days of a large sanctuary are coming to an end. I don't know if that's actually been true. So we reach, we care, but we also need to equip. We need to equip and develop the entire faith community in discipleship. Discipleship plan. An inactive member is an oxymoron. If you have 1,000 members, you should have 1,000 disciples doing their work. Do we take church membership too lightly? A lot of growing churches have a membership covenant that says, if I'm going to be a member of this church, here's what I'm making a vow before man and God to do. We need to equip. And so we equip through Bible study. We equip through this discipleship system that unfortunately, and I've read through this, there's for adults and for children and youth. And what happened, if I heard this story right, and again, there's a printed copy of this right outside of my office too, is that this was done right towards the end of Graham's time, and then a little thing called COVID hit, and then a new pastor who wasn't a part of the process came in. That we did some great work. Is there anyone here that was a part of the team that developed this? Not a single young person. You're all very young, but you know what I mean? Do we understand the difference? Right? So we don't have to reinvent a discipleship plan. We need to implement a plan, right? We need to see, is this work still representative of where we are right now? And how can we get that ball rolling? We know that to launch a spaceship to go up to the moon, how much of the ship's energy is used just to get it off the ground? Over 90%, just to get it off the ground. And once it's going, then it's just about guiding it and steering it. So it's going to take a lot of work. We need to equip. We need to equip with Sunday school for all ages, confirmation for all ages. Do we know in our book of discipline, and one person, what do you want gone? One person said, about half the stuff in the book of discipline. There's too much stuff in the book of discipline, which was a valid answer, and I liked it. But it says under confirmation is supposed to be a repeatable act. What kind of a statement, a vision would it be? What would it look like if we had a group of adults who were maybe confirmed in the 50s, 60s, 70s, redo confirmation led by Pastor Matt, and we have a reaffirmation confirmation Sunday for adults? How awesome would that be? And so, yes, we need to equip. We can do that in a number of ways. But we also need to send. Disciples are sent out into the world, which is why I read those texts in the mission statement from the United Methodist Church. We need to get disciples out in the world to serve. And to do that, we need to help people discover their spiritual gifts. We need to be willing to go into risk-taking mission and service. And to get more people excited about that, we need to celebrate and highlight the mission opportunities and mission successes. I see youth mission trips in our immediate future. I see adult mission trips being expanded. We in the Methodist Church have a wonderful group called Volunteers in Mission, where just small groups of people from these local churches can be a part of it. I have been on a number of those work camps. It is wonderful. But it all boils down to this, and this is really going to make you nervous. Next slide, please. My real vision, macro, is that everyone who's associated with this church will go with this understanding of worship plus 2 with a tithe. Worship plus 2 with a tithe, which means we're going to see you in worship. And maybe we're not seeing you, but you're worshiping with us online. That you're still worshiping with us. You're still a part of us. So we worship, but we need to do more than that. Get in a group so that people will notice if you're gone. Yes, we get into small groups. We get into groups so that we can grow and meet other people, but it also helps us minister to each other. If someone hasn't been around for a while, your small group's going to know. Your small group's going to reach out. Small group ministry needs to be a part of it. And so that's the joining, but then the serving part. Find your ministry here. And your ministry may not be the glory ministry. Your ministry may be something that no one even sees but you and God. A small thing that you're doing for this community of faith or on behalf of this community of faith. Worship plus 2 with the tithe. And so we move forward. So research has shown that the most fruitful years in ministry are years 8 through 12 in a pastorate. And our current bishop believes nothing good can happen after 12, which is why after year 11, when I was at Stillwaters, he said, your congregation needs to know you're going to move. The previous 2 bishops they encourage longer pastorates. But we know that in the Methodist Church, we still are moving people on average less than 5 years, which means no pastor has even gotten close to the point where they can really get to the most fruitful years. And so if I'm going to be here from 28 to 40, can't believe I'm just talking about the year 2040 already. That seems crazy. My role needs to be a little different. My role needs to be different. My role needs to be preaching, first and foremost, because that's my greatest impact on large crowds of people. Teaching. I have not yet taught a class here at Emmanuel Community, and my undergrad's in education. I love to teach. I love to do that. My group, my other part of my role is macro vision casting, always looking forward, always looking for a new opportunity to be relevant. And then also, and this is so much fun, fundraising. We're a nonprofit, right? A lot of churches get in danger because they forget they're a nonprofit and they become hoarders. And we know in the Bible, when the manna came every morning, if people tried to hoard it, what happened to it? It rotted. It rotted. So every nonprofit has an executive director, And a huge part of the executive director's role is doing that fundraising, and that's part of my role too. If we really want to explode in growth here, utilizing me, somebody else needs to run the business side of it, whether that means an executive pastor or somebody else. I can do it. I am doing it. I have done it. It is not fun and it wears on me. That's not my spiritual giftedness. So we got to move forward with that. So in 8 to 12 years, we're going to be multi-site. We kind of already are, because we have our in-house site and we have our digital site. But we also need to have other sites that we're looking into. Coffee house worship, bar worship, theology on tap, those kinds of things. Go to where the people are. And my guess is, if we're growing and we're succeeding, we're going to be asked to help out some other churches locally that are struggling and failing. And what might be able to happen is that we can be multi-site and to help these struggling congregations get back to a place of health. That's going to take a lot of energy. We need to have a wide variety of worship offerings. Everyone has their own unique soul print. And so what happens at Celebration Hall, as I heard in my meet and greets, it's not some people's cup of tea. What happens in the sanctuary is not some people's cup of tea. So a variety of offerings, the message the same, but different ways to express it and to bring it all together. I envision having a praise band, a praise team, to do some really more modern contemporary music right here in this space. And I have always been a part of those kinds of groups. I want us to get to the point where other churches can learn from us. You know what? Some of the most valuable lessons that our church might teach other churches comes from, here was an epic failure of ours. That's still teaching, because we've learned that we made a mistake and we know why, and so we can help out. This is a big, hairy, audacious goal, but we need to have commitment to it, to be the Menomonee Falls leading Protestant social action youth ministry. Look at that, just read it up there. To have the leading social action youth ministry in this community, which means mission trips, it means education, it means that the adults are modeling attitudes and efforts and actions. We need to have a high level of biblical literacy, and here is one that God just has not left me alone with, a special needs ministry. I am so excited that we might have an opportunity to partner with the Threshold next summer, but God has laid it on my heart that we need a church that has a special needs ministry. Let me illustrate my point. Some of you heard this story. When I was serving a little country church, just outside of Elkhorn, not even in Elkhorn, in Tibbetts, right? This little country church, and this woman came to worship. She was a tall, thin girl, and she had a son who was early teens, but he was about 6'2", and he was very much on the autism spectrum. And she came walking in, and she said, "Is it okay that I'm here?" I said, "What do you mean, is it okay that I'm here?" And she shared that her son can be disruptive and that the previous 2 churches that she was a member of asked her to leave because of her son. He was disruptive, but the people were warm and welcoming. Wisconsin nice, Wisconsin farming community nice. And I'll never forget that young man, that special needs young man, the most meaningful Christmas Eve service I've ever attended or facilitated. It came time, and this is a beautiful white country chapel, built in 1872, and it came time for the lights to come down and the passing of the flame, right? And we sang Silent Night, and it was silent. And when I asked people to raise their flame up, the display it made on the ceiling, no one made a word. And that young man went, "Oh." The congregation, it's like the Holy Spirit just blew through those windows. And I'm sure no one has forgotten that service. previous 2 pastors said, we need you to leave. You're too disruptive. We're not equipped. Not equipped. I was used to be a part of the large church initiative, and so I'd go to these mega churches, and 2 of them had special needs ministries with, a sensory room and people equipped. And some of the people said, well, you're a mega church, you can afford to have this kind of ministry. And the one pastor said, no, we're a mega church because we have this ministry. He said, we'll have families that will drive over an hour to come and worship with us because there's not another church within an hour that is equipped for us to come as a whole family. And so I don't know why God won't leave me alone on this, but I have learned if God's not leaving me alone, he's never going to leave me alone with this. And so that is us too. So let's take a look at the staff. I know we're getting long here. And so when I say staff in 8 to 12 years, some staff might be volunteer staff. And no church makes it without volunteer staff. The problem is no church has enough courage to invite volunteer staff to no longer be staff. One of the most horrible experiences I ever had was to disinvite or to relieve somebody of their duties who was a volunteer working in ministry, but we need to protect the whole. So staff, what do I need? We need a minister of congregational care, someone that's going to help be a part of our shut-ins, our visitation, those kinds of connections. We need to have a ministry of assimilation into congregational life. I had a membership coordinator at Stillwaters who walked people from a first-time visit all the way into the life of the church. The ministry of assimilation to congregational life could also be a small groups coordinator. They could oversee the hospitality, the ushers, the greeters, the guest follow-up. Ministry of administration, a business manager, facilities and properties. I already mentioned an executive pastor. We need to have someone on staff who's overseeing the discipleship program. We have, but I'm not eliminating jobs, right? We still have a minister of discipleship, but also with mission. We need to have a ministry of worship arts. That's, now you can say Bill, and you can say Rosie. But we need to have staff that do that. The most important one, ministry of communication. This is where so many churches fall behind. What is our digital presence? Is it up to date each and every day? Is it user-friendly? Is it an open door? Is it the front door to the church? Because that's how people find us now. Social media, IT, a dedication to the latest and greatest data, a ministry of office management, a family ministry. We always need to make sure we're staffed for children, youth, young adults, special needs. Food ministry, which we have a volunteer staff person already. You are a volunteer, aren't you? Okay. You're not relieved of your duties. Continue on, good man, continue on. And then, of course, our building manager. So staff's going to look different. Facility. During my sabbatical, I had the opportunity to go to over 50 different churches where I didn't have to preach, I didn't have to do anything. And I walked into some buildings that were old, that looked brand new inside. Brand new inside. Up to the minute technology in there. Everything was clean. Everything was pristine. Everything was new. The carpet wasn't old or frayed. Everything was perfect. I walked into buildings that looked great on the outside. You walked in, it smelled old, it looked old. The carpet was older than I am, and I'm 55. Those kinds of things. We need to continue to have a dedication to our facilities while maintaining the sense of sacred space. Everything has to be up to date. We must always have the latest and greatest technology. And so if all this is going to happen, 9 necessary steps, really fast. It all begins with prayer. Prayer. People take prayer for granted. Prayer changes the world. Prayer changes you and empowers you to change the world. So we pray individually, we pray corporately, that is with each other. We need to study the Bible individually and corporately. We need to create an even better culture of invitation. And that's going to come through my preaching, my teaching, through illustrations, and celebrating wonderful moments of invitation. I have a distant cousin, and he's been at every worship service since I've been here, since I started when he was in town. And I don't know if you know this, but I sent spies here. I found out, what was it, January or February I found out I was coming? And so I would send spies, and I sent my cousin. And he shared with me his experience. And he said somebody walked him through the whole building and gave him a tour of everything. He said it was wonderful. And I asked, about this person, and I think it was Roland, just based on the context clues of what this guy said. He was dressed like an elf. But, the creature of imitation, that's so important, but not much more important than this. Ruthless assessment. You've already heard the phrase, we're not good at killing things here. Ruthless assessment says what needs to die. What needs to die, which is why I asked that question, what do you hope is gone? Ruthless assessment. We have so many different people keeping data on so many different things. I went to a breakout session at that leadership conference called Counting What Matters. And why do we count people? Because people count. But we need to find ways to, and the guy that led that with unapologetically said, I am a data nerd. And he said, and I found out at this church there's a lot of nerds like me in this church. And so, but then when we have this data, can we learn from it? What does it tell us? Ruthless assessment. Are we being faithful to the work of the church? Bishop Schneese's 5 things: radical hospitality, passionate worship, intentional faith development, risk-taking mission and service, and extravagant generosity. We need to assess those things. Number 5, job descriptions for new staff and assessment of the current descriptions. If we are a living, breathing organization, jobs need to change. And I have been at places where somebody was hired 30 years ago with one job description. They're not even coming close to doing what the job description says because it has evolved over time. Let's make sure that we have job descriptions that are up to date and accurate, because if we don't, we can never hold anyone accountable, truly, for doing the job that they've been hired to do. We need to have recruitment. We need to have training. We need to determine strategic goals. And so what's going to have to happen is we're going to have to develop a new vision team. And vision team is different than church council. Vision team doesn't focus on anything that's now or has just happened. It's always looking forward. And if we really want to be an intergenerational church, that team needs to be intergenerational with people who have new thoughts, who have new understandings, and maybe are even new to the church, so that we can get that all to move forward. And then finally, we need to foster resources. That means funding and partnerships. And really, as much fun as I had doing a 3-week-long stewardship campaign, you know how many churches don't have to do stewardship campaigns? No, more than you think. Somebody said none. No, more than you think. A lot of churches I went to didn't even pass the plate. You dropped your offering in a box on the way in or the way out. Never have to do a preaching moment on it, because people just, that's in their DNA. They give. And so we're really late, which means that we're probably not going to have a whole lot of questions. But at this time, who is our microphone runner? Young man Ethan? It's good because he has a long reach. So does anyone have a question they would like to ask? Tamara. And only speak once you have the microphone.
If this is like your macro vision for the church, what are you doing starting now to get us there in the 12 years?
That's a great question. Everyone heard that? So if this is the macro vision, what are we doing now? Well, right now, I'm literally still giving it. But next step, put together that team, that vision team, to look forward, to reanalyze the work that was done, the good work. This is great work that you did. And how do we implement that? So get a intergenerational team in place to do that. That is the very, very first step. The second step is really continuing to be invitational, to get more folks in. But I think the first step is to get that vision team together to move forward. I would think that's the... Does somebody else have an idea what might be more important to be than a first step than that? Okay. Question over here, Ethan. No? Okay. So, I can poke fun at her because she pokes fun at me all the time. She broke the rule. She didn't speak, but she didn't wait for the microphone, but she said, is there a sign-up sheet for that vision team, right, outside my office? And the answer is no. It's not going to be a sign-up sheet. It's going to be invitation. Any other questions? So here's what I'm going to do. We have one more slide, and it's a prayer for all of us. And I know some of you are looking at your watch, because I see you looking at your watch, which is okay. And, you know, after we say this prayer, you're all free to start cleaning up to help Rick so that he does not hear, he said till 8 o'clock tonight. But I will stick around. You know, if you had a question and you didn't want the entire group to hear that question, you can ask me. And again, if you are willing to be one of the transcribers, you know, just shoot me an email or talk to me, and we can make that work. So let's stand up a little bit, huh? Should we stand? All right, so why don't we join our voices together as a community of faith as we offer up this prayer. Lord, we pray for vision for our church. We pray that you would speak to us so that our vision would align with yours. We pray that you would reveal and confirm the plans you have for us. We thank you that you want to speak to us, and we commit to walking out your vision for our lives. Amen. All right, thank you. Maybe next sometime I can present the microvision where we have everything all lined up. Any final words?
Well, an invitation, try to come next month too. I mean, this was a great presentation. We'll continue to try to provide really good entertainment.
Yeah, in December. And I promise the December speaker probably won't go as long as I did.
No, that's all right. I tend to go long. Plus, it took longer to serve a big group like this. We're used to eating in half an hour. So, yes, if you could please help get all the dirty dishes into the bus tubs, that would be very helpful. And then a few people to wash dishes. Thank you.